The Indiana Basketball Weekly Show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I'm your co-host for the Indiana Basketball Weekly Show, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in my other co-host, 1981 national champion, Steve Risley. How you doing, Steve?
Hey, doing great. It's always a good day to be a Hoosier after a victory over Purdue.
Yeah, I think
So,
the last one was your senior year.
well,
Seems like it.
we had nine straight games we had lost to them on either court. So it seems like it might be that far back, truthfully.
All right, I want to remind everybody the Grueling Truth is powered by betting.net. Betting.net is your best bet for finding the online casino or sports book that's right for you. So check them out at betting.net. All right, you just talked about it. Indiana, of course, earlier in the week beat Nebraska. Last night, though, for the first time in what seems like forever, the Indiana Hoosiers beat the Purdue Boilermakers 68-65. It's a huge win for Indiana. It's one of those, what do they call it, quadrant one wins. And when I look at this, the keys to the game here to me was the guard play, especially Rob Fittesy, who had a career high 20 points, including the game winner on a wing three-pointer. Fellow point guard Xavier Johnson had 18 as the pair combined for 38 of Indiana's 68 points. And I think coming into this game, Steve, Purdue's strategy was to make the guards beat them because Indiana's guards have struggled. And the Indiana guards got it done. They shot 15 of 13 from the field, 6 of 11 from three-point range. Fittesy had 4 steals in the game, and neither Fittesy or Johnson had even a single turnover. And what blows my mind is we're coming off a team that gets 20, 25 turnovers. They only had 3 turnovers last night, Steve.
Yeah, I was looking at that and I was thinking uh, there must have been a good-looking girl sitting near the guy that was keeping stats. I don't know that I've ever seen a game from Indiana with only 3 turnovers.
Yeah,
I
you
don't
might
know.
have to go back to 1981 or 1976 for that matter.
Wouldn't it be in any game I played? I think I averaged about 3 on my own
Yeah.
every time I got in the game. But yeah, and we've talked about this all season, Mike. Is that the guards are going to have to engage for Indiana to get to the next level of play in conference play and in tournament play. And last night was good proof of that. You know, our inside game obviously took a day off. Justifiably, we only get 11 minutes out of Trace Jackson. Brace Thompson gives us 32, but can only muster 9 points out of it. And Trace is 1 for 1 from the field, battling foul troubles all night long. Uh, and the guards stepped up. And what's interesting is you went over the stats for the guards, so I'm not going to repeat that. But it seems to me that what happened was the way they took off offensively. Um, Johnson and Rob, particularly, it elevated their entire play, including defense. It almost seemed that our perimeter defense got a lot better and really took away their guard play, which has, along with their 2 7-footers, although I don't know how effective they really are, but their guard play has been a strength of play for Purdue all season long. And we kind of nullified that and neutralized them. And actually, I think we won the battle with them. I mean,
Yeah,
in the end, we shoot 46% from the field, with bulk of the shots coming from the guards, and they shoot 42%. So we're out shooting them there.
Yeah,
Um,
and the thing about that, Steve, is we held Purdue to 8 of 23 from 3. 4 of those three-pointers came in 1 4-minute span at the start of the second half. And if you look at them, their sharpshooter, Sasha Stefanovic, was just 1 of 7 from 3. Jaden Ivey was 2 of 6. And
yeah,
several Indiana defenders were solid chasing shooters on the perimeter from what I saw, including Miller Kopp, Trey Galloway, Fittesy, and Johnson. In the first half, Indiana forced 10 Purdue turnovers, scored 11 points off of them, and Indiana had 7 steals before the break. And, I mean, when you look at it, Purdue only had 2 turnovers in the second half, and Indiana still beat them, even without it. Most of the turnovers came in the first half. But the way they defended the perimeter was worlds better than what we've seen in the past.
yeah, no doubt. But this kind of guard play that we get is what we're going to have to get consistent at. Now, the thing I've kind of noticed here, and I'm looking at the shot clock or the scoring sheet I'm looking at minutes played. Galloway gets 24 minutes. Um, Johnson gets 31. Finney gets 25. What I hope that tells me is he's starting to pare down his 10-man rotation to some degree and getting it down to a manageable number where you can give these guys enough minutes. They can get into a game, miss a shot or two, but come back like Rob did and really turn the juices on. It's funny because Johnson's 18 points were almost invisible. I don't really remember him scoring that many points in the game. Everybody was fixated on Rob's play, but here he comes with a solid effort. But I think by paring down that rotation a little bit, really is going to help this team out and get them to a 7 or 8 man where he can keep a core base in the game as long as he can, unless they get in foul trouble, which happened last night. So I like what I'm seeing, but this is what's going to have to happen. The big thing now is can they learn to be consistent with this kind of guard play and take this into the rest of the Big Ten season?
Well, one thing we got lucky at last night is we missed 10 free throws, 14 for 24, but so did Purdue at 7 for 17. So the free throw shooting is something that still concerns me. Outside of the
Yeah.
free throw shooting, this is the most complete game this team has played all year, and they did it against a team that most people think is a top 5 team in the country. And when you look at the Big Ten standings, the other thing it did is it put them back in play possibly for a Big Ten championship because now you're only a game and a half back from first place Wisconsin. Rutgers is 5-2. Ohio State's 5-2, just a half game in front of the Hoosiers. So right now, Indiana sits in sixth. Purdue is in seventh. But when you look at this, I mean, the Big Ten, I think, is better than what I really thought it would be this year because, I mean, there's 9 or 10 solid teams here. I think Michigan's down. Northwestern's all right. Penn State's dangerous. But after that, Iowa, Purdue, Indiana, Rutgers, Ohio State, Michigan State, Illinois, Wisconsin all should be NCAA tournament teams. And if Indiana ends up above 500 in the Big Ten, I think they definitely go back to March Madness.
No, I would agree entirely. I think that's a realistic number. They've got a couple of, I don't want to say easy games, but they've got some games where they're going to get opportunity. Are you on? All right, I'll keep going. They've got some games coming up where now with Michigan and then Penn State, where they're going to be able to work on some things and try and build some consistency and see if they can sustain this effort they got from Purdue and bring it into the next 2 games, because then they go back into another big meat part of their schedule where they're going to start playing the tough teams again, pretty much for the rest of the Big Ten season from there. So great opportunity for them to work on some games here and to get things going and get some consistency. Look at that rotation and see, are we happy with 7 to 8? Do we want to keep it at 10? Mike will make those decisions, and so far most all the decisions he's made have been good ones. Maybe he was still scouting his top 10, looking for that 7 to 8 man rotation if that's what he wants to work with. We don't know the answer to that. Only Mike and his staff does, and they're doing a good job. So this was a fairly important win for this team, but more importantly, how they got the win and how they played. They actually got outscored in the second half, but yet were able to hold on. And the most amazing thing is they pretty well did this without the help of Trace Jackson Davis and Race Thompson. So
Had a little technical difficulty on my end. We had a couple dogs get in a fight, so.
That or was it the Mexican you had for lunch?
I had steak for lunch.
Oh, that's even worse.
I know. I had steak yesterday too, and I'm eating steak again tomorrow.
Oh man, weren't you on some plant-based diet?
I was like, where you been, Steve? That was like 3.5 years ago. Now I
Okay,
control my weight by just eating meat once a day.
there you go.
But
I
all
only eat
right,
one meal a day. Anyway, so I covered most everything, talking about the fact they've got 2 games here where I don't want to call them easy games because I don't think there are any easy games in the Big Ten right now. But they're games that Indiana can afford to dial things in and see if they can build some consistency out of what they accomplished against Purdue.
Well, put it like
See if they
this:
can
they'll be
sustain that kind
easy.
of effort.
They can be easy games if they don't think they're going to be easy games. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, exactly right. It depends on their mentality now, and that's another whole big factor to work on. Take a game like this; it's got to help their mentality to believe that they belong in that upper echelon with the teams you mentioned, the upper tier of the Big Ten teams.
Yeah, and Steve, also the NFL playoffs are coming up this weekend. If you want to go place a bet on the game, go to betting.net, which finds the best promotions, offers, and bonus codes so you don't have to. Head over to their website now to take advantage of things like free bets and matching deposits at betting.net. All right, this is my issue. Don't rush the court. Indiana beat Purdue. To me, I know we haven't beat them in a long time. But damn it, we're the Indiana Hoosiers. It bothered me when they rushed the court when they beat Kentucky back in what, 2000 and whatever that was, 16 or 13 or whatever it was. But don't rush the court. It's a regular season game against Purdue. How many banners does Purdue have, Steve?
Well,
For
national,
national championships. Yeah.
uh, they have one actually.
Yeah. So why are we rushing the court because we beat Purdue? That seems kind of stupid.
Well, Mike, and let me give you an analogy to that. I look at things and I say, don't put tattoos on your body. Why do you do that? Why, that's permanent. That's permanent ink and everything like that. But also, by the same token, that is this generation's moniker. That's what defines them is rushing courts and putting tattoos on their bodies. It wasn't mine. It wasn't yours. I don't have a tattoo. I don't ever plan on getting a tattoo. Um, and I don't know what you do, if you do or not. It doesn't matter whether you do or not.
No tattoos.
Yeah, and my son doesn't, which is surprising to me because he's right in that model age of that younger group. But I see it that way. I think it's immature to rush the court over that. Nobody ever rushed the court when we were winning in our time frame of when
No,
we were
when you
playing.
played, people rushed the court because they might have beaten Indiana. Indiana didn't rush the
Well,
court
yeah,
because
it
they.
wasn't Indiana. We never had a home court rush. It was always at a visitor's game if it happened, and I don't even really remember it happening that often. But this is just what this generation believes in. Frankly, if they're ever going to do it, having lost to them 9 straight games, this being Purdue and Purdue being ranked in the top 5, I would give them their one pass. Um, like I keep up on my wife gives me with a Hollywood starlet somewhere out here is that one hall pass, which she's not agreed to yet. So, which I don't
If
think
she
will.
hasn't by now, she's
I think
probably
she
not going
realized
to.
that she could give it to me and it wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to take advantage of it. So I don't. And I was reading that there was a lot of Twitter play on that today, including our buddy Dan Dockage, who was getting all over the rushing of the courts and things like that. And
So Dan's against it too, huh?
Dan was against it too. And I just came to the fact that of all the things I got to deal with today and worry about today, is those kids rushing the court really one of them? And I saw Mike. Mike was as animated as I've ever seen him in probably the 47, 45 years I've known the man. He was animated. I mean, this was a big win for this
Yeah, I'm just
basketball
saying from
program.
now on, don't rush the court anymore.
Well,
I
yeah,
mean,
okay. I would agree with you. You proved you did it. You had fun, but don't make it a habit to do every time we get a big win. Act like you've been there before. But I give
plus you
them a
could
hall
give the
pass.
entire team COVID, Steve.
I give them a hall pass on last night. It was a big win for this basketball team. I love the way they won the game. They won it in a way that they hadn't won any other game this year. They won it with guard play. Our big guys that went south on us, justifiably, like I said, we were playing against a couple of 7-foot monsters, and it's hard to play against guys taller than that. So we got it done. We got the win. It's a quadrant 1 win. You've got to keep stacking those on your resume and pile them up. We got another one on there, which helps you get in the dance. So there was nothing negative about last night in any way, shape, or form that I was able to pull out of it. And I now the thing I say is sustainability. Let's sustain the guard play because we have guard play like that. And you said it yourself. You think Purdue is one of the most legitimate top 5 teams in the country, and we beat them. And we beat them still getting outscored in the second half. I think it was 39-31 or something like along those lines. It was close, but they outscored us in the second half. So we still managed to hang on and win. Kept our poise. 3 turnovers. I got to believe that's those guys are pretty accurate with their stats. That's ball control. It's doing everything right. And I just don't want it to be a one-hit wonder for this basketball team.
Yeah, because that we have seen before here, especially over the
Last
last
20
20
years, we've seen a
years.
lot of that.
Yeah. And next up, they go, what is it, at Michigan? Or Michigan at home, Steve?
Pardon?
Are
They,
they at
they, they
Michigan
go
or Michigan?
to they go to Chrysler Arena at
Okay.
Michigan and play there.
And Michigan is 8-7. They got Eli Brooks. Yeah, they've got a decent backcourt. Caleb Hostan, Devontae Jones. They got a good center in Hunter Dickinson. They beat Maryland 83-64 the other night, where they dominated the first half, just kind of coasted into the second half. This is not the Michigan teams we've seen in the past, but it's still a road game. And we beat Nebraska, and that was, you're supposed to. All right, it's
But you
that
see what
simple. We
happens now,
just have
Mike,
to win those games.
is Indiana goes up there Sunday, and Indiana has a bullseye on its back now.
Well, I think the big concern here for me is you hear about trap games in the NFL. You
Yeah,
get a big win, and then you got to come back the next week,
right.
and invariably you're never as jacked up. So this game is actually at Indiana, which helps though. So you got Michigan at Indiana on Sunday at 3:30, and then Wednesday night you get Northwestern. I know I'm looking at this wrong here, ain't I?
No, you got Penn State, don't you?
Yeah, I was looking at the Michigan. See, that's why
Oh
you
yeah.
can't take me anywhere, Steve. But yeah, but it's at Indiana on Sunday. Then they play Penn State at home. These are 2 games that are, I'm not going to say must wins, but they're games you got to have because they're at home.
Oh,
You're the
they are
better
must
team.
wins. I think they're
Yeah,
must wins.
yeah, because you can't afford to let up here. And
You
then
can't lose these games
after those two, you go to Maryland, which is very winnable. Maryland's not what people thought they would be this year. Of course, they lost their head coach early in the season. They've kind of been a team in turmoil. And then you host Illinois, which is the number 7. That's another probably quad 1 win if you
now.
can
It's
get
definitely
it.
quad 1 game. Yeah.
So, I mean, right now, the way this is shaping up, what we've seen in the past is Indiana would get a record like this because they played a week early schedule, and then they would fall. We talked about it today. You'd get a 5 or a 6 game losing streak. Right now is that part of the season. So
Right.
what are they going to do? This should be win against Michigan, win against Penn State, go to Maryland and win. You win all 3 of those games, you're sitting really pretty in the Big Ten. You put yourself way above 500 in the Big Ten. Then you host Illinois. You go to Northwestern, and Northwestern's a dangerous team. You go to Michigan State, who's ranked 14th, Wisconsin, at Ohio State. So these games are must-win games because after you get past these next 3 games, I don't know. In Indiana, Illinois, Indiana might be a small favorite since they're at home, but Indiana's probably going to be the underdog at Michigan State. Wisconsin's probably going to be close to an even matchup at Indiana. You go to Ohio State, you might be a small underdog there. So there's 2 sections of this right now that I think could put Indiana into the NCAA tournament safely, and that's beating Michigan, Penn State, Maryland. And then after that 5 or 6 games we just talked about, then they play Maryland and Minnesota. So those 7 games right there are huge to me. So I'm saying this: if they could go 5-2 and 6-1 in those 7 games, they'll easily make the tournament.
I agree. Yeah, I would just be repeating you if I said any more to add to it. And that's what they face. That's the price you pay for winning a game like this, and putting that bullseye on your back. We played with it every game for pretty much the 4 years I
Well,
was at Indiana.
Indiana had the bullseye in their back from 1971 to about 2003 or four. You know,
Yeah.
because after Knight left, they were still good. Played for a national championship against Maryland,
Hmm.
but it's been 20 years since Indiana had a bullseye, unless they
Right.
go to
Well,
Indiana State, if
this,
you know what
this
I mean.
this puts it back on there, coupling that with the play they've had all season, with the talent they've got on this team. So you're right. They cannot afford to slip. They have the golden opportunity to entrench themselves. So when they start talking tournament teams, Indiana's never mentioned in that bubble group. That's what we want to avoid now, is just no bubble, no mention of Indiana around the next four in or first four out or that crap that we've dealt with every year for 15 of the last 20 years. The other five, we couldn't even make that. We couldn't even get elevated enough to make the next four in.
Yeah,
We just
and I would say
definitely have.
with the win over Purdue, you get a win over Michigan, you're 15-4. I would imagine Indiana will break into the top 25.
You would think so. Yeah, I would think they would.
But see, I mean, that'll tell you how far Indiana basketball has fallen. I mean, was there ever a time, probably 2010 and before, where Indiana would be 14-4 and not ranked?
No.
So that's what Mike Woodson is going up against. He's trying to change the culture, because the culture in Indiana the last 20 years has been a culture of being basically average. You know,
Yeah, well,
sometimes
and
you
I'm
make it,
far into
sometimes you
his
don't.
camp. You know that. I think Mike can do it. I think he just got to. It takes time to change the culture and to get it back. I know where Mike wants to take it. I mean, he wants to take it back to the culture that he played under, that we all played under. So that just doesn't happen overnight. It's going to take him some time to get there, but I think he's on his way. Um, and there'll be bumps. We're going to miss a game or two between here and the end of the Big Ten, but so is everybody else. I mean, I assure you, Purdue didn't expect to lose this game last night. They had
Well,
9 straight against us, including 3 or 4 of those at least at Assembly Hall. So they weren't having any more fear about playing at Assembly Hall than we would playing Penn State at home.
oh,
You know,
Steve, by the way, I think we're going to ignore the question that the listeners
yeah,
asked.
I don't even get that question, but there are still
I'm
there
not
are
going to
still
repeat it. I'll tell you what,
in
I'd
my
repeat it if it was the NFL show with Dan, because Dan would know which one he'd won.
yeah yeah. Just
All right.
there are idiots out there still.
So let me ask you this. I mean, you're going into Michigan, which is a 500 team. In 1980, 1981, I mean, number one, talk about, because I'm sure you had big wins against Purdue in 1980 and 81 in the regular season and had to go play the next, or a few days later. How would Coach Knight handle that?
Well, it would be the roughest week of practice we had. I mean, we would not come in and get a kind of a R&R practice week to play them, or a couple days. They've actually only got today and their travel tomorrow. So they'll shoot around and play in the morning. They'll travel to Ann Arbor tomorrow, and then they'll shoot around later on in the evening or afternoon before dinner that night, and that's it. So they really only had today to practice. And I guarantee you, today was an all-out practice. If Mike is following what Knight did,
Yeah.
they'll tape. That was always the first question. Um,
Heck was
and
that?
I got an invisibility cloak
Oh, okay.
that I put on
Well, quit using
occasionally.
it during the show.
Sorry about that. But yeah, no, I expect today to be a good knockdown physical practice. Sure, they're looking at a fair amount of film, looking at things. Why did our bigs get in such foul trouble? What are they doing wrong? Um, just things of that nature. But they're not going to go sit and just yuck it up and pat themselves on the back with the win. So I expect that.
All right, real quick, if you want to bet on the Indiana Michigan game or any of the NFL playoffs this weekend, make sure you go to betting.net to help you find the best promotions, offers, and bonus codes so you don't have to. Head over to their website now to take advantage of things like free bets and matching deposits at betting.net. All right, Steve, anything to add before we wrap it up?
No, it's a good critical point that they've created for themselves, where they can alter their stars just a little bit, change course a little bit, and where you help Mike get back to the culture he wants. Don't expect a sweeping change. It's a good win for Indiana, but they have to sustain that kind of effort and play, and now start piling up good wins.
Yeah, because if you come back and lose a game against
It's
Michigan at
tough or
home,
not.
then nobody cares about the
Nobody
Purdue
cares
game.
about the Purdue game. Exactly. So it's critical now that they take hold, they dig in, they realize if they give the effort that Mike wants them to give, they can beat anybody in the country. If they can beat Purdue right now, you have the ability to beat pretty much anybody in the country.
Yeah.
I would think. I would think Purdue stacks up as good as any team in the country right now.
I
And
don't think they do, but we're going to leave that topic for another day. I think they're a top 15 team. I don't think they're one of the 5 best teams in the country, but nobody
well, they
cares what
didn't
I
play
think
like it
because
last
it
night,
is.
but is that Purdue's fault or Indiana's fault?
Well, they also, this is the
We don't
thing.
know.
Purdue, I mean, they beat Illinois. And see, that's kind of the trap game mentality there. You go to Illinois, you win a double overtime game, then you come play Indiana.
Yeah,
Indiana
you
hadn't
lose.
beat you in 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, they're taking. They're
Yeah,
taking it easy. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, and really, the way Purdue outplayed Indiana in the second half would tell me that might have been somewhat the case. But the thing that was
yeah. I
great
thought about
about
that.
that, the thing that's great about that, is Indiana still buckled down and made the plays at the end of the game to win the
But
game.
I can tell you right now, as a coach, I'm going to talk about a trap game, but I'm never going to say that's why we won the game
No,
because
but
it became a trap game.
this
I
is
know
the
you,
thing.
as a smarter coach than me, you would never use that. You would say, "Don't get caught in a trap game,"
Yeah.
but you would never look at your team and say, "We
Well,
won because that was a trap game for them."
if I'm playing a team that's terrible, the week it won of that game, I'm going to make my players as miserable as possible so they
That's what
take
did
it
I tell
out.
you earlier.
So they
I'm
take it
sure
out on the other team.
Mike is giving him a harder practice as he can today, right now, without getting anybody injured. And then they've got all day tomorrow, travel time to rest and catch up. They're young kids, and it's an early game. Well, it's a 3:30 game your time. It's a 12:30 game here. But yeah, but I would
Well,
never ever look at my team and tell them we won that game because it was a trap game for them. I would tell them, don't you get caught in a trap game now.
all right, Steve, you want to come back maybe Monday night at 7?
Let's do it.
Monday night at 7, we'll wrap up the Indiana Michigan game. Look forward to the rest of the week that's in front of the Indiana Hoosiers then. You can follow Steve Risley at SRisley34 on Twitter. You can follow me at Grilling Truth. You can go like our Facebook group, The Grilling Truth, and follow us on all social media outlets, including YouTube. You can hear the podcast version of this starting tomorrow, of course, on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and over 300 other outlets. But for now, for Steve Risley, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been watching and listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.